have said publicly that no one has discussed, that would be interpreted, no one has discussed this at all, but we have a document, whether leaked or not, that establishes that these cuts are being discussed.
I said that I have made clear we will not be cutting frontline health care. If they're
But
working
your
on
subordinates are discussing this. They must have gotten the direction from somebody.
They did. Well, I've been very public. It's just like your staff. If they
Okay,
want to talk
well,
about something
you can
that you don't know
understand
about.
why there's a lack of credibility from the public on this sort of
There's
stuff.
a lack of
This is
credibility
not
for this.
speculation, Mr. Secretary. It is a VA document. We have asked your head of HR, Mark Engelbaum, for answers. We've actually asked your subordinates about this. He promised a follow-up, and we never got it. So I'm asking you now, on the record, why did your team request this analysis, and what are you preparing for?
That fiery questioning was the top Democrat ranking member on House Veterans Affairs, Mark Takano. He was grilling Trump's Secretary of Veterans Affairs over his plans to cut staff and make it even harder for veterans to get the care and benefits they deserve. The contrast between the two parties on this is very clear. Democrats are committed to supporting our veterans and investing in their healthcare, housing, and education. After all, if you sign up to serve our country, then our government should hold up its end of the bargain to you and your loved ones. But that's not what Republicans believe. Remember that in 2018, Trump allegedly called veterans who died in World War I suckers and losers. He denied it, but his chief of staff, John Kelly, confirmed it. A few years later, in 2022, Senate Republicans voted against the PACT Act that expanded healthcare benefits for veterans exposed to Agent Orange and other toxic chemicals from burn pits. It was shameful, and they even tried to spin their vote for days after until public pressure forced them to backtrack and support the bill. And most recently, Republicans allowed Elon Musk and his Doge crew to fire thousands of federal employees, 1 in 4 of whom are veterans. Compare all of this to Democrats like ranking member Takano, who we showed you at the beginning of this episode. He literally wrote the PACT Act. He stood with veterans to expand access to care, to improve systems at the VA, and to make sure that every veteran gets the support that they need to thrive after their service. So we're thrilled to have Representative Takano on today's show. I'm Hannah Moldavan, Deputy Communications Director for the Democrats. It's Monday, August 25th, and this is the Democrats' Daily Blueprint. Ranking member Takano, welcome to the Daily Blueprint.
I'm glad to be here and eager to get started.
Amazing. Now, the latest report from the VA's Office of the Inspector General shows a severe staffing shortage at every single VA medical center in the country.
Yes.
You said in a statement that veterans are worse off under Trump's VA Secretary Doug Collins' leadership. So tell me, how have Trump and Secretary Collins' policy decisions gotten us to this point, and what are Democrats doing to support veterans who are honestly facing an uphill battle when it comes to quality, affordable healthcare?
Yeah, well, this is really a result of an ideological an extremist view about staffing. They just are cutting people just to be able to say, "Oh, look, we're cutting waste." But there was no real deep consideration or analysis about how to cut staffing positions. And I'm going to tell you, as the ranking member and as chairman, I've never visited a VA facility that said that they were overstaffed. They were always saying, "We are understaffed. We need more specialists. We need more primary care physicians. We need more nurses." Never have I heard that the VA has ever been fully staffed. Doug Collins is, boasting and bragging about all these cuts. And what it's meant is that veterans are paying the price with longer wait times. They're paying the price with longer wait times means they can't get their appointments when they want to get them. The Democrats are pushing for more fuller staff and making sure those vacancies get filled. We're doing all that we can to do oversight. I had the secretary in front of me, questioning his questioning what he was doing in terms of all the cuts. And what they care about is politics. They care about playing to their base. They don't care about our veterans.
Yeah, and I don't think you could pull someone off the street and say, "Do you think our veterans should receive fewer resources?" Right? These are people that have served our country. And this is something that Trump isn't new to, this idea of a broken promise. I feel like no group has felt that impact of Trump's failures as strongly as our nation's veterans, like you mentioned with the staffing cuts. So, what are the long term consequences of VA staff cuts, right? Obviously, it's longer wait times now, but what are you hearing from veterans themselves about how Trump, Elon Musk, Doug Collins' attacks on the VA are impacting their lives and could in the future?
Well, long term, what I see happening is uh, things being made more expensive for the taxpayer. But really, Americans, they don't so much. They're really more focused on making sure we take care of our veterans, less on the cost of what it takes of taking care of our veterans. And so, but our veterans really would prefer to get their care inside the VA. They don't really want to be referred out and have the experience that most of us have, where we uh, have to try strain to go see our doctor. We have to go, to a different place to get our blood drawn. And just coordinating all that care puts a lot of burden on the patient. At VA, all that care is coordinated. It happens all in one place, and and we need to make sure that we take care of our rural veterans better. But long term, it's going to mean care is privatized, and that is going to be a worse experience for our veterans. And our veterans who are in the system are very satisfied, for the most part, with the care they get inside. Um, it also, and more immediately, um, what the VA is doing is they've cut access to reproductive health care for our women veterans. What I find particularly not just frustrating, but it angers me that the very women who stood up for your rights and my rights, who put their lives on the line uh, so that we have our freedoms, they're getting their freedoms taken away. Uh, their ability to get access to, say, a life saving abortion when, say, a pregnancy endangers their life, uh, the VA is reversing the ability for a woman veteran to get access to an abortion in the case of incest or rape as well. But there have been cases of women veterans with life threatening pregnancies that need access to an abortion, and VA is taking that away. Um, there are restricting access to gender affirming care for our trans veterans. These are people that served our nation in uniform. They deserve full access to medically necessary care. It means that uh, cutbacks in outreach to our minority veterans. Women veterans are the fastest growing demographic at the VA, uh, and they don't utilize their benefits or their health care to the extent that male veterans do. And long term, these staffing cuts are going to mean that we're not going to find out how to make sure that our all of our veterans get access to the benefits and care they deserve.
I truly feel like we're living in the upside down, especially when you talk about women's access to these healthcare services, and especially when it's veterans who have served our country. It makes me sick. Um, but let's talk about some of the good things that you did when you were
Yes,
chairman. So you were chairman of the House Committee on Veterans Affairs when the Democrats had the majority. You're now the ranking member, which for people who don't know this terminology, you're the top Democrat, right? You're the top
yes,
Democrat on this committee.
yeah. I'm the top Democrat. Set the priorities. Look, I had 2 years in the majority under the last president, when President Trump was president the first time, and I had 2 years under President Biden. And
So
even
you really
under,
know, the
I know the
differences.
difference. I know
Yeah.
the difference. The Democrats didn't play politics under Trump. We did what was right for veterans. Nancy Pelosi said, Mark Takano, bring to the floor the Blue Water Navy Act, the Vietnam Blue Water Navy Act. That was an act that brought justice to Vietnam veterans who served on naval vessels, surface vessels in the territorial waters of Vietnam, who were exposed to Agent Orange and suffered, 20 years. Many of them, some of them died before they could get relief. But we brought that to the floor. The Republicans held it up in the prior session. The Republicans held it up. Two very extreme senators in the Senate held it up, but we passed it with a unanimous vote, and we sent it to President Trump's desk, and he claimed victory on it. And look, it was a bipartisan effort, and you know, uh, we did that because of veterans. We didn't deny President Trump a win because he was President Trump. We did what was right for veterans. Under President Biden, we did even more. Republicans did not want to do this, but we passed the Honoring Our Pact Act. Now, look, 34 Republicans voted with the Democrats when we brought it to the floor. Now, what did the PACT Act do? The PACT Act it was the largest expansion of veterans benefits in a generation. To date, 6 million veterans have been screened for toxic exposure. 1.5 million veterans have had their claims approved. And what does that mean? It means that the federal government, our government, the American people, we are listening to veterans when they come in and say that they have an illness that is due to their service connection because they were exposed to burn pits or radiation or dangerous chemicals. We've recognized 23 presumptive illnesses, which is really more like 300 illnesses. And when they're screened, it sets them up for when an illness occurs, maybe 10 years, their body develops a cancer because of an exposure to, say, a burn pit. Uh, they're going to have the peace of mind that their family is going to be taken care of, that their medical expenses are going to be taken care of. So I'm very, President Biden signed that. He believed that his own son, Bo, his rare cancer was due to exposure to a burn pit. Um, and uh, but look, I want people to understand that the current Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, he voted against the PACT Act the first time. He voted against the PACT Act the second time, and then final passage. Uh, and he was a part of Republican leadership that opposed it the entire time. And were it not for the Democrats, the Republicans really didn't want to. It was the money. It was the money. They didn't. They don't want to. They don't want to end it for the cost of war. They think that once the war, uh, the actual fighting's over, that the fight is over for our veterans. But you know what? For at least 1.5 million of our veterans who've had their claims approved, um, the fight still goes on because they're suffering from the toxic exposures, the burn pit smoke that they inhaled while they were in camp for a year or 2 years. Um, the fight goes on for them; it doesn't stop. So the cost of war goes on, and they many of my Republican colleagues just want to push that aside and minimize the care that we owe our veterans.
Yeah, and you say playing politics. That's what these Republicans were doing. I don't think that many Americans at home think we should play. They probably hate politics anyway. Playing politics with veterans' access to healthcare, the PACT Act, which I think a few weeks ago was the third anniversary of this, a huge benefit expansion for them, like you mentioned. Now, I know that people are wondering what they can do at home. None of the stuff we've talked about that Donald Trump has done is good. And like you said, Speaker Johnson wasn't supportive of veterans in the bill that you led either. This year, we have a few elections. We have Virginia, we have New Jersey, we have Pennsylvania Supreme Court. But then in 2026, we have the midterms. And that's when, if the Democrats take back the House, you could go from being the ranking member, so the top Democrat, to holding the agenda for how we should be caring for our veterans in Congress. Can you talk a little bit about why it's important for people to stay engaged and why we shouldn't give up hope, especially on a bipartisan issue that is one like caring for our veterans?
Yeah. Well, it's very important to put a check on this president and a check on the the accretion of power What the big theme is that the way that the Republicans believe, what they believe about the presidency, is that everything should flow back to the president. That the executive is this unitary executive idea. We need to put a check on that. We need to put a check on the extreme ideologues that run the departments, that run the agencies, and the Department of Veterans Affairs is the second largest department in the federal government. 400,000 employees, most of them healthcare workers. They've taken away collective bargaining rights for those healthcare workers. And what does that mean? It means that uh, people don't really are going to be less incentivized to work to support our veterans. And most people who work at the Department of Veterans Affairs aren't doing it for the money. They're doing it because of the mission to take care of America's veterans. And when you take away the right to be represented by a union, um, and not be able to tell your side of the story, where the managers and the executives hold all the cards, that's not a fair, healthy environment that you want to work in. And I really fear that that's going to mean less talented people are going to be working to support our veterans. We've got to reverse these policies. And 2026 is the elections in 2026 are the chance for the American people to put someone else in charge of the House of Representatives, someone else in charge of the Senate. And it will mean that I will have my gavel back. I'll be able to question why Secretary Collins wants to put so much money into profiteering, billionaire controlled private sector companies rather than investing in the critical care units that take care of our paralyzed veterans who they're not going to get the kind of care ever in the private sector. The private sector is never going to be incentivized to take care of our paraplegic veterans the way that our veteran our VA hospitals do. I mean, that's a really important example. Our disabled American veterans will not get the kind of care uh, because the doctors in the private sector just don't understand the complex needs, nor are those healthcare systems going to be set up to do that. So, what's really critical now is to stop the extreme cutting, the extreme ideology that interferes with the research that VA does. I mean, the medical affiliations, the academic affiliations that we have with America's universities. VA plays a very critical role in training America's doctors, whether they're military, whether they're VA doctors or not. Um, I've never seen such an attack on science, an attack on um, uh, scientific research, all for Donald Trump to be able to uh, say you're not teaching the right thing, so I'm going to take away your medical research dollars. This is all impacting our veterans as well. So, look, I'm in the middle of in California here of helping to fight back against the unfair mid decade redistricting. Uh, I mean, Donald Trump has ordered basically Governor Abbott and the Texas legislature to redraw the districts in Texas so that they have five more Republican seats. California, we're reluctantly uh, responding, and we're saying, look, that's not fair. In California, we have an independent redistricting commission that draws the seats. Uh, we believe in that. We believe in good government. But uh, if Texas is going to do this, if any other state at the command of Donald Trump, we are going to respond. And why is Donald Trump doing this? Because he's afraid that Americans are watching what's happening at the VA. They're watching what's happening to our veterans. They're watching what's going to happen to our paralyzed veterans under Donald Trump. Among all the other terrible things that this administration is doing, and he knows that he's in danger of losing the Congress, and he knows that he's going to face accountability, and that's what he really fears the most. But all his behavior can be explained. All of his crazy behavior can be explained by the fact that he knows that he's in danger of losing. And that's why he's got to cheat. That's why he's got to change the rules of the game, in the middle of the game. And so what you can do is continue to harangue your representative about veterans and making sure that veterans are taken care of. You can hold all of your representatives accountable, Democrat or Republican, and you can oppose this power grab and support the efforts for fair elections in 2026. That is our main hope. Put a check on this president.
It's amazing that California is fighting back like this. And I will say, I think that Californians will be able to vote on a proposition this November in order to fight back with fiery gusto like California is. I think that's right. Am I right with that?
Yes, we're doing the fight the election rigging initiative in California. The initiative to fight election rigging is an effort in California to answer what they're doing in Texas. We are going through. We're going to suspend the uh, the independent commission if Texas follows through. So it really is just a response, and there'll be a snap back to the commission at the end of the decade. But we're asking the voters to look at what's at stake here. Uh, our democracy is at stake, and we're doing this in the open. We're asking the voters to approve a plan, uh, not a manipulation that we're seeing in Texas of the process, where the governor is locking up, uh, putting armed guards on every Democratic legislator's tail, um, in order to shove through a redistricting plan that will give them 5 more Republican seats. Democrats only short three seats in the House of Representatives. That is what Donald Trump is so scared. He is so scared that the big bad ugly bill, uh, I call it the big ugly bill, which took away 15 million, uh, took 15 million Americans off, which is going to do that, which has put millions of Americans at risk of losing their exchange policies. And by the way, the big bad ugly bill hurt veterans. It hurt veterans. Millions of veterans depend on SNAP benefits. A lot of veterans actually get their health care through Medicaid. And the cuts in Medicaid are going to mean that veterans don't have health insurance. And uh, I tried to get veterans to be exempt through amendments I submitted to the big bad ugly bill to get veterans exempt from uh, having to be on the work requirements. That's why the Republicans they're putting these really onerous work requirements, and most people who are on Medicaid work anyway. But if you're a disabled veteran, um, you know, making it tougher, making it giving them more bureaucratic hoops for the veteran to go through in order to get health care. That's not what the American people wanted, and that's what the big bad beautiful big bad ugly bill does. Uh, so taking away health care and food benefits, SNAP benefits. Uh, this is all very unpopular, a very bad look for the president and the Republicans. Why? It was all to save money so that they give permanent tax breaks, not temporary, permanent tax breaks to the wealthiest corporations and billionaires in our country. American people, they smell a stinker, and uh, it is comeuppance time, and Donald Trump wants to avoid that comeuppance as much as possible. That's why he's trying to get all these red states to redistrict, and that's why California is fighting back. And you can help California fight back because I'm already seeing mailers in the mail coming from the other side, telling lies. So anyway,
Well, Congressman Takano, thank you for coming on here, not telling lies, telling the truth. We thank you for your leadership standing up for veterans, even when it came to this big, ugly bill, which you described as horrible, only benefits the billionaires, which is comical. It's still trying to stand up for our veterans, fighting the fight in California. Thank you for
yes,
your leadership, and thanks for coming on today to talk to us a little bit about it.
thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.